Hello, and welcome to the YMCA San Francisco's Classroom for All. My name is Justin, and today we're going to be learning how to find a percent. So feel free to follow along, or you can just watch and try this activity on your own later. So let's go ahead and get started. To begin, first I'd like to cover what is a percent. So let me tell you, a percent is a fraction of a whole. So let's start with this right here. This is 10%. But what does 10% actually mean? So if we actually look at the percent symbol, it actually is 100. So you can see the 1 is there and the 2 zeros. So 10% is actually equal to 10 over 100. So that's what a percent is. It's actually 10 out of 100. It's actually a fraction. But we can also turn this fraction into a decimal. So in my last two classes, we learned how to multiply and divide decimals. In this class, we will be putting it to use in finding percents. So 10% is equal to 10 over 100, which is also equal to 0.10, so 0.10. OK, so 10% is equal to 0.1. 20% is also equal to 0.2. So in order to find a decimal from a percent, all you have to do is move the decimal up 2. So for example, if I had 37%, what would the decimal be? Well, let's move this up 1, 2. It will be 0.37. Awesome. So this is how we turn a percent into a decimal. This will be very useful. You cannot multiply by percent. You actually have to multiply by either a fraction or a decimal. So it's very important that we know how to turn percents into decimals. It's the easiest way to do it. Like I said, we're just moving the decimal place up 2. Perfect. So now we know what a percent is. Let's find the percent of a whole number. Let me clear my board. So for our first problem, we're going to find 25% of 80. OK, so what is 25% of 80? Well, the way our problem is now, this is not solvable. We actually need to change the way our problem looks to a way that we can solve it. So first off, I'll say of always means to multiply. So when it's 25% of 80 or 2% of 165, it means we are going to multiply. So this of is going to be a multiply. This 80, we can bring on down, that's fine. And we know how to turn our decimal our percent into a decimal. We just have to move our decimal point up 1, 2. So now we have 0.25. OK, so we just turned 25% of 80 into 0.25 times 80. And we can solve this. We know how to do this. What we're going to need to do is stack our two numbers and do some stacked multiplication. Perfect. OK. 5 times 0, 0. 5 times 8 is 40. 2 times 0 is 0. I added an extra 0 because I went down a layer. 2 times 8 is 16. Add it all up. 0, 0, 0. Carry the 1, 2. So we have 2,000. OK, well, that does not seem right. 25% of 80 does not seem, or cannot be 2,000, because we know that 25% is not full 80, so it has to be less than 80. So what are we going to have to do here? We're going to have to move our decimal place. So since we have 1, 2 there, we have to go 1, 2, and 20 is our answer. So 25% of 80 is going to be 20, and that's how we do it. I actually have a couple more problems. The next one we're going to do is 72% of 56. And I'll put it on the board as soon as I erase everything. Okay. And if you feel that you are not super confident with decimals, we do have a multiplication and dividing decimals activity if you'd like to check it out on YMCA.org, classrooms, YMCA San Francisco, classrooms for all. So my board is clean, and we can move on to 72% of 56. So let me put that on the board. Perfect. So 72% of 56. We cannot solve a problem in the format it is in, so let's change it. We know that of means to multiply. We know to turn our percent into a decimal, we need to move the decimal place up 2. So it's 0.72, and the 56 can stay the same. So what we're going to do is 0.72 times 56, and this we can solve. So let's go ahead and stack our problem. Okay. 2 times 6 is 12, carry the 1. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11, add a 0. 7 times 6 is 42. 7 times 5 is 35, plus 4 is 39. Did I do that math right? Yes, I did. Go me. 2 plus 0 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 1 plus 9 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 3 is 4. So we have 4032, which is a huge number and way bigger than 56. So we know that we have to carry our decimals. So 1, 2, 1, 2. Perfect. So our answer is going to be 40.32. So what is 72% of 56? Well, it's 40.32. Perfect. Okay. And before, no, we're good with that. So that's how you find the percent of a whole number. But let's move on to something a little bit more difficult. We're going to be finding a whole number as a percent of another number. And I know that sounds really confusing, but once I write the question on the board, it's going to make a whole lot more sense. So let me go ahead and erase everything really quick. So now let's move on to finding a whole number as a percent of another number. So let me put that on the board really quick. Our problem is going to be 80 is 25% of what number? So 80 is 25% of what number? So how are we going to solve this? So we know how to solve what is 25% of 80, but how do we solve what is 80 is 25% of what number? Well, what we're going to do, we're actually going to divide instead of multiply this time. So what we need to do is change our question into a format that we can solve using math. And this is how we're going to do it. 80 can stay the same. 80 is good. So I'm going to write 80 down here. 25 needs to be changed. So 25, we're going to move the decimal up 2, and it's going to be 0.25. So to find what number we're missing here, we need to divide 80 by 0.25. So like I said, you should already know how to divide decimals because we have a class on our Classrooms for All. So if you're unsure, you can go back and rewatch that. But yes, so what we're going to do, first we need to count, we need to turn our numerator, or the one in the front, into a whole number. So we need to move our decimal up 2. So we went from 0.25 to 25. But since we moved 2 in the front, we got to move 2 in the back. 1, 2. So we just turned 80 into 8,000. Okay, so how many times does 25 go into 80? 25, 50, 75. I'm going to say 3 times. 80 minus 75 is going to give you 5. Bring down the 0. How many times does 25 go into 50? I'm going to say 2 times. It's going to go as 50. 0. Bring down the 0. How many times does 25 go into 0? And that is 0 times. So 80 is 25% of what? 80 is 25% of 320. So that's how we find a whole number as a percent of another number. So yes, thank you so much for joining me. I think we're going to call it there for today. We were finding percents today. We learned how to find a percent of a whole number and find a whole number as a percent of a number. So once again, thank you for joining me. Please join us at YMCASF.org/classrooms4all for more fun classes, and see you again soon.
Did you know that YMCA of San Francisco never closed? When shelter-in-place happened, we could no longer provide in-person programming. We quickly shifted to provide youth and family programming virtually. As early as April, we started providing on-demand activities in our YMCA of San Francisco YouTube channel.
For this video, we're going to be making a geodesic dome.
Today, we're going to be making a hovercraft. The science around this activity is really awesome.
In addition, we have a regular schedule of activities for our youth and families to join live. We feature read-alouds, yoga, family Zumba, arts and crafts, drawing clubs, and more. So don't miss out on our virtual youth and family offerings. Visit www.ymcasf.org for more info and class schedules.